Ladies and gentlemen, g'day, welcome back to the channel. My name's Economics Mate, this is World of Tanks Blitz, and based on the fact that you clicked on this video, I'm assuming you read the title. Best Tanks for Noobs. This is a guide, in my opinion, what I think are the best tanks for new players or newbies. Now do keep in mind there are plenty of tank lines to choose from in Blitz, but sometimes you just start a game and you're not 100% sure of what to pick and what to play. Or maybe you've been playing for a bit now, but you only have like 1 or 2 tier 10s, and you're unsure what other tanks that you'd like to grind up, because, well, let's face it, there isn't a lot of videos out there that specifically target newer players or newbies. Right? Now I know Droodle's made a video recently talking about his top noob tanks, but I think, in my opinion, talking as a noob myself, as people have been calling me, as a sub 50% player, I can tell you straight off the bat, I think I know best what tanks are good for newer players and noobs. So without further ado, let us get right into the video. Let's have a look at these tank lines, okay? Let's start with the American line. What tanks do I think are perfect as noob tanks? Well, let's look at the T110E4. The T110E4 line is, well, a prime example of a tank that is a good starter tank destroyer if you are newer to the game or if you're a new player. And the reason for that is, well, one, it's got a turret. Yes, it only traverses 90 degrees to the right and 90 degrees to the left, but nonetheless, it's still got a turret. It's got a 155mm gun. It's got very nice pen. It's got decent DPM. It's got great alpha damage. It's a tank destroyer. It's got decent armor too. It's a tank destroyer. And if I have to say so myself, the T30 is one of the best tank destroyers in the game, tier for tier. It honestly is such a versatile beast. This thing, on a ridgeline, on a hill, you play it like a heavy tank, even though it's a tank destroyer. It's quite incredible. Actually, the story with the T30 is, this tank actually was a tier 10 American heavy tank in World of Tanks PC. Pretty crazy to think that they actually made this the tier 10 American heavy tank in PC, and then decided to make it a tank destroyer and bring in the T110E5 as the heavy tank, basically. So yeah, definitely the T110E4 line is a fantastic option, and it's easy to play. Okay, it doesn't require a lot of skill. Yes, you will need to know how to play hold down and whatnot, but it's pretty good. Even the T28 prototype is actually a decent tank. It's gone through some buffs over the years, and right now it's actually a very, very nice tank. It features a 120mm gun. It's got decent turret armor, decent hull armor. You can side scrape in this thing and go hold down. It's got great DPM as well. The top gun on this thing actually does 2,470 DPM. If you're running it with gun rammer, it actually does pretty good. And remember, it's got a fully traversable turret. It's basically a heavy tank. The T25 and 2. This is also a very nice tank. It's not really a tank destroyer, realistically. This is more like a medium tank. So you're going to play it like a medium tank, not like a tank destroyer. But it's actually a very nice tank. In my opinion, I feel like the T110E4 line is interesting in the sense that it's very versatile. And then, of course, how can we forget about the M18 Hellcat? This, for me, is one of the best T6 tanks in the game. In my opinion, I think this is the best tier 6 tank destroyer in the game. A lot of people will argue that, the Kreuz is actually more broken. Okay, but the Kreuz is not a tank you can get for free. It was a battle pass tank. You can't just get it for free. You have to earn it. You have to buy it. This is free. It's a turreted tank destroyer that you can basically play like a light tank. It's got amazing mobility stats. It can go like 60 k's an hour. It's amazing. Look at the concealment. 82% while stationary, 57% while moving. It's a very, very nice tank. And it's got a 90mm gun with very nice DPM for a tier 6 tank. It's basically a light tank. It literally is a light tank. Another tech tree line that is actually pretty nice indeed. I wouldn't say the T110E3, and the reason for that is this entire line requires some kind of skill to play. You need to learn how to use a non-turreted tank destroyer with a bunch of armor properly without getting killed. So I wouldn't say it's a good option. The M48 pattern is a fantastic medium tank to start off with. This is a quintessential medium tank. So you play it hold down. It's got great armor at the front, great armor on the turret. It's got an amazing gun. This really is the quintessential medium tank, and it's a sexy looking tank. It's an M48 pattern. How can you not like it? The line itself is actually quite nice. I mean, you've got the M46 pattern, which, surprise, surprise, is actually a decent tank. People don't give the 46 pattern enough love, the love that it deserves. It's actually very, very nice. And it's quite easy to play. These tanks are not difficult to play. If you learn how to use tanks on a ridgeline, and you go hold down, and you snapshot and peek-a-boom, you should be fine. It's not very, very difficult to learn how to play these tanks. Even the, the M26 Pershing is a nice tank. Yes, it's not as good as the Super Pershing, but it's actually quite nice indeed. And the T20 is actually a nice medium tank. I mean, this is basically like a light tank. It's quite nice. It is quite nice to play. You don't see it. You very rarely see these tanks being played, which is a shame. But yeah, the M48 pattern line is chef's kiss. And the pattern itself, the 48 pattern, is one hell of it. It's one of the best medium tanks at T10. It's very, very, very good. Now, I know some people might say, oh, what about the M6Yo? Doodles made a video recently talking about the M6Yo and how it's, in his opinion, the most overpowered T10 tank in the game. I disagree with that. Sorry, Doodles, but I disagree with you, mate. I don't think this is the most broken heavy tank or just broken T10 tank in the game. This tank and the entire tank line takes skill to play. You can't just jump in this tank as a newbie and expect to do well. You actually need to learn how to play it. And if you learn how to play it properly, trust me, it is devastating. But as a newbie tank, I wouldn't recommend it. Any other tanks? Sheridan. The Sheridan is actually a very good light tank. It is actually a very nice light tank. It's easy to drive. It has spaced armor all around, so you're not going to get HE to loss. And you have a derp gun. Your gun is a 152mm gun that does 570 alpha on average with APCR, and you can do over 690 alpha with HE. It's a very nice tank. It's easy to play. It's easy to play as a light tank. The T92E1, again, another light tank that's actually very easy to play. It's got very nice stats. It's not difficult to play at all. At 152mm gun at T9, yeah, it's quite nice. You do quite a bit of damage with this thing. And then of course you have the T49. The T49, one of the most legendary light tanks at tier 8. This thing, when it came out, was broken. The HE on this thing had such a high potential of ammo racking things. If it penned, it was insane. It's obviously been nerfed since then, but it's still 152mm derp gun at tier 8 in a light tank. You can't get any more fun and any more easy to play as a light tank than this. The only issue is, obviously, with these tanks, you're going to struggle to pen your heavy tanks, but I mean, getting behind them is very easy. Spotting them from a distance and shooting them from a bush is very easy. If you know how to play light tanks, you should be fine. And then the M41 Bulldog. This is a very, very nice tank, light tank at tier 7. Such an easy light tank to play. So this entire line really is very easy to play. That would be my opinions on the American tech tree. Now, let's go through the German tech tree. I'm not going to take up too much more of your time, guys. I'm going to skip over the Grill A15 because, I'll be honest with you, the Grill A15 line, you do need some skill to play. It's not easy. Yeah, I mean, if you're a newbie and you don't know how to use lightly armored tank destroyers with like basically no armor whatsoever, you're going to get ruined. So I'm not going to go for that. I would say the Jagdpanzer E100 is quite easy to play. I mean, it's nothing special in this day and age. It's kind of sad that this super heavy tank destroyer is not as devastating as it used to be, but it's got a 170mm gun that can really do a lot of damage. And you've got a ton of armor to work with if you know how to use it, but it's quite easy to play. It's not difficult. The Ag Tiger, just as easy to play. Go on a ridge, use your gun depression, use your DPM, and you'll basically sing. It's fantastic. It's got insane DPM, this thing. 3,913 DPM as standard. If you're running this with Rammer and you're using tungsten and you're using adrenaline, goodbye to whoever is going to be in front of you. Yag Panther, the Yag Panther 2, such a nice tank. This is an underrated tank destroyer. It's very, very underrated, and it's quite easy to play. Again, these are just tank destroyers you can sit at the back if you want. Yag Panther. The Yag Panther itself, a 105mm. Very nice tank. Very nice tank destroyer. Very easy to play. You know, it's the quintessential tank destroyer. And of course, you've got the Yag Panzer 4. Again, very similar playstyle. Easy to play. Great tank. That would be my opinions on the tank destroyers. Now, in terms of heavy tanks, I would not go for the Mouse. I would not go for the VK. I would say the E100 is actually one of the easiest heavy tanks to play. I know people are going to be like, oh, it requires skill, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't require a lot of skill to play this. The Mouse requires skill because its armor is practically useless in this day and age. The E100 is such an easy tank to play, and it's so easy to do well in. You have a choice of two guns, the 128 that does 3,000 DPM, which is pretty crazy, or the 150 that you can basically HE targets with if you really want to. It's got very nice armor. The turret armor has been buffed on this thing. It's just overall an easy tank to play for a new player, and it's, let's face it, it's pretty good. It is very, very nice indeed to play. E75. This is one of the best T9 tanks, if not the best T9 tank in the game. It's so versatile. This is the quintessential heavy tank. Not only is it, I mean, let's face it, it's a sexy tank. I mean, hello, baby. This is, this is what I call a heavy tank. Look at it. What a brute. This is a sexy tank. This is basically a Tiger 2 on steroids. It's so good. The armor on this thing is amazing. You can play this whole down. It's got a 128mm gun. It's got good pen. It's got decent DPM. It's got decent mobility. Everything about this tank is noob friendly. It's very forgiving in different situations. So yeah, definitely. Tiger 2. Another sexy tank. How can we not love the Tiger 2? Legendary status. Very easy to play. Doesn't require a lot of skill. It's very forgiving, especially since it's had many buffs over the years. How can we forget the Tiger 1? Tiger 1's very easy to play. The only problem is, this is not a heavy tank. It's a heavium. It's a heavy medium tank. But again, very easy to play. It's very nice. Got an amazing gun. It's laser accurate. Great DPM. Good mobility. Its armor is okay for a heavy, but it's very easy to play. And that's the point of this video. Tanks that are easy to play. Even this thing, the VK3601H, it's one of the best T6 heavy tanks in the game, alongside the ARL44. It's a great T6 tank. This was the tank I got my Fadens medal in. I got my Fadens medal in this tank years ago because of how good it is. And it's been buffed every now and then. It's a very easy tank to play. Very, very easy tank indeed. Now, medium tanks, there's only one. There's only one to pick. It's this thing, the E50M. This is one of the most noob-friendly medium tanks you can play in Blitz. Right now, this E50M is the top dog. This is the top dog. This is the daddy of medium tanks. It is absolutely cooked. This tank is too good. It's scary how good this tank is. But it's quite easy to play. The E50. Another great medium tank. Again, it's easy to play. These tanks are not difficult to play. That's my point. These are medium tanks. They're not that difficult to play. If you side scrape in them, you go hold down in them, you wiggle and jiggle, it doesn't take a lot of skill to play these things. That's my point. They got great guns, very good armor, good mobility. It's very forgiving. Okay, now obviously the E50 takes a little bit more skill than the E50M, but still, the Panther 2, another great medium tank. It's a very underrated tank, this thing. A lot of people don't give this tank enough credit. It's so simple to play. It's very simple. There's not a ton of skill that you're going to need to play a tank like this, but it is really very, very, very nice, and it's quite a sexy tank. The Panther is another one. The Panther 1. This has got a long-barreled 75mm gun that has great pen and great accuracy, and it's just great to play. It's super easy to understand and to eventually get a hang of it, and you can do very well. It's quite nice indeed. Okay, and even this thing, the VK3001D, this is quite easy to sort of understand the dynamics of it. It's got a nice upper plate. If you play it hold down, you should be alright. It's got some weak points, but it's a decent medium tank. So the whole line is very good. Now, what about the Rheinmetall Panzerwagen? No. The RHM and the Leopard 1 are definitely tanks you do not want to be playing as newbies, as noobs, whatever you want to call it. It's not a noob-friendly tank. Okay, it requires a bit of skill. The Leopard 1 especially, because it's a medium tank that doesn't have any armor, you really need some skill to play it. So I wouldn't recommend it at all. So from the German line, the Jagdpanzer E100, the E100, and the E50M. From the American line, the T110E4, the M48 Patton, and the Sheridan. However, and the Sheridan, I should probably say. And you know what? Before I glaze over it, I should probably say the T110E5 as well. The T110E5 is a great heavy tank. This is an old school heavy tank. Okay, back in the day, it used to have a big hatch on top. That was a weak spot. The Wargaming removed it, and it just became this awesome heavy tank that really dominates a Ridgeline. It's quite easy to play. It's got a very nice armor profile, nice gun, good mobility. But yeah, the M103 is a little bit, I don't know. The M103 has lost its touch. It really has lost its. You barely see these things being played on the battlefield, mainly because they're just not as good as they used to be. It's not as good as it used to be. And it has no PVR. Wargaming, give the M103 PVR, for God's sake. It deserves it. It's good, but it's not amazing. The T32 is a very, very nice tank. It's an underrated Tier 8 heavy tank. It's very nice. You can play this on a ridgeline, and that's the point of these tanks. You can play them on ridgelines. What about the T29? The T29, this is a quintessential heavy tank. This is one of the best Tier 7 heavy tanks in the game. This thing, put on a ridgeline, not even Tier 8s can pen this thing. It's crazy how good this tank how good this tank can be. M6, also an underrated tank. I don't like the way it looks. It's very ugly, but you know what? It's easy to play. So, my bad, ladies and gentlemen. I completely forgot about the T110E5. But there you go. The T110E5 is also my pick for the Americans. Moving on to the Soviets. I know this video is really dragging on, but I'm gonna make it quick. In my opinion, Object 268. This thing is just great. It's great. It used to be very, very good back in the day. Now it's just great. It's a great tank. It's easy to play. Great. It's got good pen. It's very forgiving. The entire line, in fact, is actually very, very nice. The SU-152 is obviously a derp cannon. The SU-100 is very underrated. 122mm gun at T6 with like a 12.1 second reload. That's pretty impressive. Of course, the ISU-152 with the BL-10. The Object 704, again, a very troll gun and a troll tank. It's easy to play, and I would pick it. I would also go with the IS-7. Again, a very old-school tank. A tank that I absolutely adore. And it was my first T10 tank. And it is just... It's such a good tank. It's just always been great, and it will continue to always be great. Of course, you have the IS-8s, before it, which is a great tank if you know how to play it. Yes, you do require a little bit of skill to play it, but other than that, it's pretty forgiving. The IS-3, again, old school cool. It's very nice to drive. The IS, again, great tank. Very underrated with the 100mm, I believe, in my opinion. And of course, the KV-1S, such a cool tank to play. And the KV-1, again, underrated. So that would be my pick as well. What about the IS-4? The IS-4 is an interesting one. The IS-4 back in the day was just one of the best T10 heavy tanks. It was like, this thing was difficult to come up against. The IS-4 was the quintessential comp tank. Everyone was playing this thing in comp back in the day. And now it's still good, but it's lost its touch. But my point is, it's easy to play. It's easy to play. Same thing with the ST1. It's easy to play. The KV4, it's easy to play. Because once you've gone through the KV and the KV2, which, come on, who doesn't like the KV2? The KV3 and eventually the KV4, by the time you get there, you should be able to play this thing no problem whatsoever. It's not that difficult to play. Very easy line to go up. Medium tanks. I feel like the Soviet tanks are like the easiest ones to play out of all of them. Medium, you know what? I will say the T62A is probably easier to play than the Object 140. But if I had to choose between this and the 140, I would probably go with the 140, because the 140 is actually a better tank to play than the T62A. But in terms of easiness, I would probably say the T62A is probably easier to play. Don't forget the T54 is still a great medium tank. You've also got the T44, the T43, the T3485. All these tanks are easy to play. They're not difficult. They're quite simple and easy to play. And you will enjoy playing them a lot. And it's a good learning curve as well for medium tanks. What about light tanks? T100 LT. I would probably say don't go up that line. It does require skill to play, and that's why it's not my pick. Oh boy, this is difficult. As for the British tanks, to be honest with you, I probably wouldn't recommend playing any of them if you're a newbie, apart from maybe the FV215B183. Sorry, the FV215B, I should probably say, the heavy tank. It's quite a nice tank to play. This tank particularly does require some skill to play, but the rest of the line is quite noob friendly, in my opinion. Yeah, I'd probably say the 215B, maybe. The FV4202 is a great tank, and the entire line is it has some great tanks, but I don't think it is noob friendly, so yeah. As I said, apart from maybe the 215B, I'd probably steer away from the British tanks, just because they require some skill. Now, the Japanese, I mean, there's no other word to say it. The STB1, yes, requires some skill to play, but I mean, if I had to pick between this and a Leopard 1, I would probably pick the STB1, mainly because this is basically a Leopard 1 with armor. It's such a nice tank, and it's not that difficult to play, in essence. The entire line is quite straightforward, to be fair. The Chi 2, the Chi Re, it's got an autoloader, which is quite nice. Doesn't have any armor, but it's still pretty cool. STA1, underrated medium tank at tier 8. And even the Type 61, even this thing is quite nice to play. Yes, it's got a big weak point on the top, but the gun on this thing is very, very nice. 105mm gun. Very, very nice indeed. Yeah, it's not as difficult as people make it out to be. The Ho-Ri, this is a great tank. It's a very, very nice tank. This is one of the greats at tier 10. And it's not that difficult to play. I'm not going to say it's easy, but it's definitely easier to play than some TDs. And in the whole line itself, the Ho-Ri T2 and the Ho-Ri T1 and the Chi 2 SPG, quite simple to play. I will say they're quite simple to play. Even the Type 71. The Type 71 is one of those tanks where it's a heavy tank that really is fantastic to play. It is great. It really is great. And it's one of the easier heavy tanks to play, mainly because it's very forgiving. It's got great armor on the front. It's got great armor on the turret. It's got a fantastic gun. It's got decent mobility. That lower plate is very difficult to hit because of how low it is. And if you just play this thing hold down, and you'll do perfectly fine. Same thing with the Type 68. It's also a great heavy tank. The other tanks in the tier, the Chi-C, the Juto, and the Junu, and the Mitsu 108, they're quite simple to play. They're not difficult to play. I mean, you know, some of them are not amazing, but they're quite easy to play. So it's good to see that basically all three of the tank lines in the Japanese lines are quite easy to play. They're not that difficult to play. So I would recommend playing them. The Chinese line, definitely the WZ 111 GFT. Sorry, I should probably reiterate the WZ 113 GFT. This is a nice tank. This is a great tank destroyer. This is very forgiving in many situations because of the armor that it's got, because of the gun. The whole tank line is very, very nice and very easy to play. The BZ75. You know what? No, I would steer away from the BZ75. The BZ75 line does require some skill to play. It's not as easy as people might think. The WZ113, though, is very, very nice. This is one of the most underrated heavy tanks at tier 10. People don't give the love this tank deserves, unfortunately. It's not that difficult to play. It's basically an IS-4, but better. Same thing with the rest of the tanks in its tier. The WZ111, 1.4, the WZ110, the IS-2. Very easy tanks to play for heavy tanks. Mediums, WZ121. Such an easy tank to play. It's basically a T62A on steroids. It's got better armor. It's got just the same mobility. It's got better DPM because it's got a 120mm gun. The 122mm gun. Its alpha is good. Its pen is good. Its accuracy is very nice. The whole line is very similar to the Type 60A's line, just with bigger alpha guns. And it's great. It's a great line. I would also say that WZ132 and 1 is quite an easy light tank to play, but I'm going to steer away from recommending light tanks for newbie players because I feel like it takes some skill to play a light tank properly without being killed straight away. So apart from the Sheridan, I probably won't recommend any other light tanks. French tanks. I'd probably say, you know what? The 50B is actually a nice tank. It's very underrated. It's got 4 shells in this clip, which is crazy to think about. This is actually, out of all the autoloaders, I would actually pick the 50B as probably being one of the easiest ones to play, like heavy tank wise, alongside the Kranwagen, which we're going to get, because it's just easy to play. You play this thing, hold down, and you shoot your shots and you get the hell out. It doesn't have any armor, but it performs very well as a pseudo medium tank. It's very, very nice. The rest of the line, again, plays basically the same. The AMX 5120 plays basically the same as the 50B. The 5100, basically the same. The M445 is a very nice heavy tank at T7. It's quite underrated. It's like a better armored Tiger 1, pretty much. And then the ARL 44. What a formidable tank that is. So yeah, definitely the AMX 50B for a heavy tank. Foch. Boy, is this thing fun. The Foch 155. It is great, but I probably won't recommend it because the whole line requires some form of skill to play. Let's face it, it's not as easy as you may think. So I'm not going to recommend it. I won't say the Batchat, even though it is quite an easier tank to play, but let's just keep it at that. The Project Marat, again, very interesting tank. it's not as hard as people may think it is. So, to be fair, I would probably recommend getting it. It's a nice tank. It's got, nice big alpha. It's a 2-shot autoloader. I don't have an issue with the whole line. I think the line is pretty nice. The Iraq and the Project Luis are quite weird. But other than that, yeah, I would recommend the Project Marat for anyone that wants a French medium tank, I reckon. And finally, the European tech trees. Straight off the bat. Without a shadow of the doubts. The Minotauro. The Minotauro is one of those tanks where this is a heavy tank in disguise. It literally is a heavy tank in disguise. This is a heavily armored, auto-reloading tank destroyer that just decimates everything that's in front of it. The correct name, obviously, is the Contracarro 3 Minotauro. Very, very nice tank destroyer, and not that difficult to play, surprisingly. It's got a turret, that's why. It's got very good armor. You just play this whole down, and Bob's your uncle. Even the Contracarro 1 Mark II is a very nice tank. The armor is all focused at the front. Again, very, very nice. And the entire line is quite easy to play on. I know I haven't played it on this account, but I've played it on my other accounts. So I know how this tank plays. The Kranwagen, oh my god, the Kranwagen is just prime example. This thing is a beast when it's playing hold down. This is one of the best hold down tanks you can get. Also because it's got an auto reloader which just sings. And it's one of the easier tanks, one of the easier sort of auto reloading heavy tanks that you can play. And that's why I would recommend it for a newer player. Do keep in mind it does take some skill, but at the end of the day, it's a Kranwagen. It should be pretty straightforward, to be fair. The Emil 2, the Emil 1, all very nice tanks and very easy to play. The Leo is very different, obviously. It's a medium tank, is same with the STRV 74, but there's no shying from the fact the Kranwagen is a great tank. The 60 TP, oh boy. This is one of the best noob-friendly tanks you can buy or you can research. It really is phenomenal. It's super easy to play. It's got great armor at the front, great turret armor, great, firepower with its 150mm gun. It's just got everything going for it. It's super easy to play. The 50 TP is also very, very nice. 53 TP, the 45 TP, the 40 TP. All these tanks are not very easy, but much easier to play than their counterparts. So I would definitely recommend it. What else from here? Probably not the Rhinoceronte. That line does require skill to play. The Progetto as well. CS63. I probably won't recommend those tanks. All in all, there are quite a few tanks that I would pick, but if I had to pick 5, out of all the ones that I spoke about, that would probably be the best for a noob player, it'll have to be the T110E4, the Sheridan, okay, the E100, the IS7, so that's 4 already, and what would be the last one? WZ121. That would be my 5 picks, I reckon. A nice variety. Tank destroyer, heavy tanks, light tank, medium tank. Good variation. That would be it, guys. That's my picks. Those are my tanks for new players, or newbies, or noobs, whatever you want to call them. Hopefully this helped. Hopefully it's didn't bore you to death and put you all to bed. And yeah, if you genuinely learned something new and you want to see gameplay of these tanks, let me know. Obviously this is more just me rambling on and on about what I think are the best tanks for newbies. Other than that, thank you so much for dropping by, guys. Love you all. Take care. Look after yourselves. Look after your friends and family. Peace in the Middle East. And I will catch you all on the next one. Peace out and much love.